Israel and Iran have traded strikes for a fourth day. Israel says it attacked the headquarters of Iran's state television today, which was captured during a live broadcast. The Israeli military had earlier warned people in the capital of Tehran to evacuate.
Missiles are flying, civilians are fleeing, and world leaders are panicking. The Iran-Israel war is no longer just two nations trading airstrikes. It's a global fault line splitting capitals in half. Behind the scenes, governments from Ankara to Ottawa are scrambling to decide, whose side are we really on? Some are choosing openly, others are hedging in silence. But one thing is clear, alliances are shifting fast. These are the 10 countries racing to pick sides in the Iran-Israel showdown, and wait until you see who lands at number 1, because no one expected it. Number 10, Turkey. Turkey is done pretending to be neutral. In June 2025, Turkish President Erdogan personally welcomed Iran's foreign minister in Ankara for an emergency OIC coordination summit. Officially, the goal was de-escalation. Unofficially, Turkey is pivoting east. Sources confirm that Ankara has already cut back intelligence sharing with the U.S. and refused Israeli overflight access to NATO air corridors. Turkish analysts on state TV are calling Israeli airstrikes illegal acts of war, a message clearly designed for Tehran's approval. Behind closed doors, Turkish and Iranian security officials are coordinating refugee response logistics. But here's the twist. Turkey's military remains deeply embedded in NATO infrastructure, so the balancing act is razor thin. And Erdogan, he's walking it in real time. Number 9, Pakistan. Pakistan is ringing alarm bells, and behind those doors, it's reinforcing every possible entry point. With the Iran-Israel conflict heating up, Pakistani intelligence has issued a series of internal alerts warning of spillover risks along its long, porous western border. According to Al Jazeera, high-level military meetings have shifted focus from internal policing to border escalation preparedness. Pakistani generals are reportedly drawing contingency plans for multiple refugee scenarios, especially in Balochistan, where proximity to Iran makes it a likely pressure point. Military outposts are being reinforced, while drone surveillance operations have doubled over the last 2 weeks. Defense analysts warn that any instability in Iran could unleash both humanitarian and security chaos across southwestern Pakistan. Publicly, Islamabad is calling for restraint and regional dialogue. But behind closed doors, senior ministers have expressed frustration with Israel's disproportionate escalation, while more hawkish voices in parliament have openly praised Tehran's strategic patience. The shift is subtle, but unmistakable. Pakistan may not want to pick a side, but if sectarian unrest flares at home, or if Iran calls in old debts, the decision could be forced on them. And when that moment comes, sitting on the fence won't be an option. Number 8, United Arab Emirates, UAE. The UAE is balancing on a geopolitical tightrope, and every gust from Tehran or Tel Aviv could knock it off course. Just days after Israeli airstrikes targeted Iran's nuclear facilities, Air Arabia abruptly suspended all flights to Tehran. That move wasn't just about passenger safety, it was a diplomatic message in code.
The White House says President Donald Trump will decide within the next 2 weeks whether the US will join Israel in bombing Iranian nuclear sites. In a statement, Trump added that there was still a chance for talks to secure a deal over Iran's nuclear program. Europe's top diplomats are set to meet Iran's foreign minister in Geneva today. It's the first meeting between Tehran and Western governments since the conflict started 1 week ago. This comes as both Israel and Iran continue to trade intense fire. Israel says it will ramp up airstrikes on Iran after a hospital was hit by an Iranian missile.
The Gulf monarchies are watching each other, and the skies, very closely. Emirati leaders are under immense pressure from Washington to support Israel openly, but they are also aware that any shift could invite Iranian drone or cyber retaliation. In response, military convoys have been spotted moving near oil infrastructure in Fujairah, and air defense drills have quietly intensified across key economic zones. At the same time, the Emirates are trying to preserve their hard-earned role as a neutral business hub. Dubai's financial markets rely heavily on stability, and a wrong move could spark investor panic. For now, the UAE hasn't chosen a side, but its preparations suggest one thing. They're bracing for the moment when staying neutral becomes impossible. Number 7, Russia. Russia isn't just picking a side, it's drawing new battle lines, both diplomatically and strategically. In a high-profile phone call on June 19th, Vladimir Putin asked Xi Jinping publicly condemned Israel's strikes on Iran, marking one of the sharpest alignments between Moscow and Tehran in recent memory. The Kremlin blasted the Israeli operation as a violation of international law and issued a direct warning of uncontrollable consequences if the conflict escalates. This wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic messaging to the West. Since then, Moscow has moved swiftly to tighten its military coordination with Iran. Russian state media has confirmed that senior officials have begun talks on advanced air defense technology, cyber warfare training, and satellite intelligence sharing. These negotiations are being fast-tracked, signaling that Russia sees an opportunity to deepen ties with Iran while dragging the U.S. into a broader strategic quagmire. At the same time, Russia is using state-run media to shape global narratives. RT and Sputnik have begun portraying Israel as a rogue aggressor and the U.S. as an enabler of endless war. For Putin, this is the perfect propaganda cocktail: a just cause, a regional ally, and a distracted NATO. For the Kremlin, chaos in the Middle East is a geopolitical win. The more fractured the Western alliance becomes, the stronger Russia's hand will grow, not through tanks, but through tactical leverage and global disarray. Number 6. China. China is speaking softly, but underneath the calm voice is a very calculated sprint. On the very same day as the Putin call, Beijing launched a massive evacuation of over 1,600 Chinese nationals from Iran and hundreds more from Israel. Officially, it was labeled a precautionary measure. Unofficially, it was a clear indicator. Beijing knows this conflict could spiral fast, and it's already moving its pieces off the board. China has called for maximum restraint, yet notably, it hasn't criticized Iran. In fact, high-level Chinese envoys have continued energy and infrastructure discussions with Tehran, focusing on keeping oil flows secure. Beijing's Belt and Road investments span across sensitive corridors in Iraq, Iran, and Pakistan, and every missile that lands threatens their trillion-dollar vision. But Beijing isn't relying on speeches. The Chinese Central Military Commission has initiated new maritime safety protocols for its cargo fleets in the Arabian Sea and expanded satellite surveillance across the Gulf. If hostilities escalate, China doesn't want to mediate from a position of vulnerability. It wants leverage. In 2025, Beijing's sharpest weapon isn't on the battlefield, it's in global influence. And while it may not fire missiles, China is firing messages, positioning itself to emerge stronger, calmer, and more commanding when the dust finally settles. Number 5. France. France is no stranger to Middle East entanglements, but in 2025 it's choosing a side loud and clear. As a core G7 power, Paris has thrown its full political weight behind Israel. The French Foreign Ministry labeled Iran a source of regional destabilization, and President Macron has reportedly coordinated directly with Tel Aviv on emergency defense consultations. But this isn't just about words. French warships have been spotted near the eastern Mediterranean, joining joint patrols with U.S. and Israeli naval forces. Intelligence sharing with Mossad is now at its highest level since 2014, according to Le Monde. Back home, the French government has increased counter-terrorism alert levels amid fears of retaliation from Iran-aligned networks in Europe. Airports are under heavier security, and Jewish institutions are receiving enhanced protection. Paris isn't just backing Israel militarily, it's preparing for domestic fallout too. For France, the stakes are layered: energy security, regional influence, and national identity. And in this conflict, Macron has decided that strategic clarity is more important than diplomatic caution. Number 4. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is walking a razor's edge, and one misstep could ignite the entire Gulf. According to Reuters, Riyadh privately warned Iran to strike a nuclear deal with Trump-era back channels or risk a devastating Israeli assault. That wasn't a threat. It was a last-ditch effort to prevent a regional explosion. Saudi officials have refused to publicly condemn either side, but their actions speak louder than silence. Military drills with the U.S. have ramped up in the northern Red Sea, and defensive assets are being repositioned around key Aramco facilities. The fear that Iran's proxies could hit Saudi infrastructure. Again, sources suggest Riyadh has opened indirect communication lines with Israel via Jordan, seeking security guarantees without formal recognition. This quiet diplomacy shows just how tight the space is for maneuvering. Saudi Arabia doesn't want war, but it's preparing for the moment peace fails. For Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the Iran-Israel crisis is a nightmare scenario: nuclear risk, economic vulnerability, and political backlash all at once. And in 2025, hesitation is beginning to look a lot like strategy. Number 3. United States. The U.S. isn't just picking a side, it's helping lead the charge. Following the initial wave of Israeli strikes, Washington publicly backed Tel Aviv and reaffirmed Israel's right to self-defense. But that wasn't just diplomacy, it was preparation. The U.S. has since deployed additional naval assets to the eastern Mediterranean and doubled its surveillance operations over Iranian airspace. According to Reuters, U.S. military advisors are now embedded in Israeli command centers, helping coordinate defensive systems and logistics. The Pentagon has also fast-tracked additional munitions deliveries, including bunker-busting bombs. Washington isn't watching from afar, it's in the room. At the G7 summit, President Biden rallied allies to label Iran a source of global instability, effectively cementing a Western bloc around Israel. European capitals followed suit, but it was the U.S. that set the tone, militarily, diplomatically, and strategically. At home, domestic security alerts have risen, particularly around Jewish and Iranian diaspora communities. DHS has coordinated with state and local governments to prepare for cyber threats, potential protests, and retaliatory attacks. America isn't just backing Israel, it's bracing for backlash. Number 2. United Kingdom. The UK isn't whispering, it's declaring. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has called for unwavering support for Israel and has already greenlit increased intelligence collaboration between MI6 and Mossad. According to reports, UK special forces have been repositioned to Cyprus and Jordan, ready to respond if the conflict spills into broader regional instability. The UK was one of the first countries to publicly echo US and G7 language condemning Iran's actions, calling Tehran reckless and provocative. Parliament has held multiple emergency sessions, with bipartisan support for increasing aid to Israel. British warships have joined French and U.S. vessels near the eastern Mediterranean, reinforcing supply chains and emergency evacuation corridors. Meanwhile, airports and ports across the UK are on high alert for Iranian-linked cyber attacks or sabotage. For Britain, this is about loyalty, deterrence, and credibility. The UK wants to prove that the transatlantic alliance still holds strong, and in 2025, that means showing up not just with words, but with warships. Number 1. India. India just shocked the world, not by picking a side, but by refusing to. When the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, attempted to issue a joint condemnation of Israel's strikes on Iran, India said no. That refusal broke ranks with Russia, China, and several Central Asian allies, and stunned foreign policy circles across the globe. Delhi is charting its own path. Despite importing nearly 60% of its oil from the Middle East, India has stayed away from both military posturing and bloc rhetoric. According to Al Jazeera, India sees strategic benefit in keeping strong ties with both Israel and Iran, and is quietly engaging in back-channel diplomacy to calm tensions. But make no mistake, India is not being passive. Its naval presence in the Arabian Sea has increased, surveillance flights have picked up, and its foreign intelligence agency RAW is reportedly monitoring developments in both Tel Aviv and Tehran. India isn't stepping back, it's stepping between. At the G20, Indian diplomats called for restraint, peace, and regional dialogue. But behind that language is a bold geopolitical move. By rejecting SCO consensus and holding its own line, India is signaling something bigger. It will not be a pawn in another power's game. In 2025, that stance isn't just surprising, it's game-changing. While missiles fly and alliances harden, the world isn't watching from the sidelines, it's choosing sides in real time. From Russia's bold alignment to India's quiet defiance, the Iran-Israel showdown is reshaping the global order before our eyes. Every nation on this list is playing a different hand, some with open aggression, others with whispered calculations. So now we ask you, which of these 10 countries surprised you most? And what happens next if the line between allies and enemies gets even blurrier? If this breakdown gave you a fresh perspective, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share this video before the headlines change again. Because in a world racing to choose sides, understanding who stands where has never mattered more.